Celebrity Deathmatch was like one of my first like change the channel if I hear footsteps coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that and South
Hit the
Park.
last
Those are the
button.
first like last buttons. Oh, I'm just watching SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Porn.
Jackass, South Park. I'm just watching porn. Yeah, which would be worse? Speaking of porn, Clint Eastwood, sexy guy,
Very sexy guy. Very sexy guy.
unrelated to anything else.
Unrelated to anything that we're talking about. Do you feel old when you're on TikTok and you see that young people are discovering a movie or like a song or like a band or something? I feel like there's been like some big ones or some weird ones in the past couple of years.
I feel like I used to get annoyed when I would see like accounts be like, you have to, you would see kids be like, check out this retro band, and it'd be like Fleetwood Mac.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, at first I was getting annoyed by that because they, you know, it's like, why these kids think they're discovering Fleetwood Mac or Led Zeppelin or whatever. But then someone pointed out, it's like, they're just, you know, we're just watching this generation like turn into teenagers.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, that's literally what it is. Like, we're just watching
did the
it in real
same
time.
thing. I know.
Yeah,
I
exactly. We did the exact same thing.
100%. I'd be like, oh man, like just discovered this like old music, and it's, you know, someone who was like super famous in like the 70s or 80s. It's like everybody knew.
Super famous.
Yeah. Like, dude, we didn't come out of the womb like,
I didn't.
Oh, I love Dreams.
Like 3 years ago, I was like, oh my god, why does no one talk about Graceland? Paul Simon's Graceland. It won album of the year in like 1988 or whatever. Like, it's like
they hit this
wow,
artist
listen to
with
this
a hidden
gem.
gem.
Listen to this gem with all these African influences. It's amazing. Look what he did. No one talks about this.
As like a teenage film bro, I feel like I did the same thing with like watching older movies and being like, Fistful of Dollars and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Not a lot of people are talking about this, but those movies are pretty good and
pretty films.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
This Martin Scorsese
I think more people should see them.
I don't know if you've heard about him, but he has this movie Taxi Driver. Not so bad.
Pretty neat.
Not so bad.
Pretty neat.
Yeah.
I speaking of Fistful of Dollars and what was the other one? What's the other one called? A Few More Dollars?
A few dollars more.
For a few dollars
more.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the movie we're going to discuss today is actually part of a trilogy. I found that out like this afternoon.
I
that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is like canonically the first one, and it was the last one made.
Yeah, it's like one of the first, maybe not one of the first. I'm sure there are other examples, but it's like kind of one of the first prequels.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I knew that it was like the final one they made. I actually didn't realize that it was like canonically the first. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I guess really the big thing is that. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Apparently, his outfit at the very end is like his like iconic.
Yeah, because I recognized that at the end with the poncho, and I was like, "Oh, that's the one from the pictures." And then
so sexy.
There you have it.
So
Blondie.
We'll get back to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but I feel like there's some other things that we should probably cover first. Those two lovely voices that you're hearing, Screenagers, are of course our favorite guest spot co-hosts. We'll say Sean and Sean of the S Rank podcast. They were our first non-Screen Age Wasteland contributing guests to be on the Canon, and they're back for more. The S Rank podcast is, since we last spoke on the show, the S Rank podcast is fully up and running. It's got over 10 episodes. They still haven't invited me on to be on their show. I've had them on my show twice. It's not like I'm keeping score or anything, but just say like, yeah, if you want to return the favor, we could do that. But for any listeners who maybe didn't hear the first episode with Sean and Sean of the S Rank podcast, why don't you fellas go ahead and introduce yourselves? And Sean, you can go first.
Hey, every time.
Get it?
Very well, since you're speaking.
Sure. Hello. I am Sean Welsh Brown. There's various things you can call me. People call me Welsh. People call me Sean. I'm a longtime film watcher, TV watcher, video game enjoyer. Used to be an actor for many years, still do voiceover work. So, big fan of art, big fan of content. I like watching it. I like playing it. I used to like making it. Not so much anymore because it doesn't pay the bills, and it pays less than ever. There's a strike going on about it, believe it or not. But that's me.
Oh yeah, you're a striking.
Yeah,
you're a
I am
striking
technically.
man.
I am a SAG-AFTRA. I'm a union man. I'm striking.
Okay, I want to come back to that, but before we do, Sean, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself?
Oh, I almost did it.
No,
I almost did the Jay-Z.
Oh,
Allow me to.
he's also a Sean.
There you go.
True.
We should have him on too.
There's too many of us.
I am another Sean, just like the one on this podcast, and Jay-Z. But you can also call me No Banana Suits on twitch.tv. I stream video games there like 3 times a week. But I also co-host the S-Rank podcast with the lovely, striking SAG-AFTRA Sean Welsh here with us. And yeah, happy to be back. We definitely have to have you on. We got to figure out what we got to structure in more guests and different formats. We basically right now decide news articles to go over from the gaming industry or like big industry topics to go over like 3 hours before we record. So
nice.
we need to buffer in like maybe like a solid 24 to 48 hours more into that.
That's fine. Whatever works. The show's been good.
Thanks. Your show's been great. And we're happy to be back.
It's been going well so far, right? You guys are what? Is it 11 episodes?
11 deep.
Episodes
Mm-hmm.
deep.
11 deep. We're actually a little behind. We were supposed to record last week, but I got sick, and then this week has been hell. So we have to record this week still and put one out. But mostly every Wednesday we put a new episode out. It's about like an hour 15 on things going on in the video game industry. It's been a huge year for games. But we've had a lot to talk about. A lot of corporate greed, a lot of voice actor harassment, which is always fun. But also from an artistic side, just like this is maybe like one of the biggest years in gaming ever in terms of like quality art and quality, just quality from the medium. So it's going to be a competitive award season, our award season.
Yeah, seriously. Just big release after big release. A lot of critical darlings. A lot of critical... What's the opposite of a darling in that context? An anti-darling?
I don't know.
I don't even think I know what darling means.
Yeah. Whatever the opposite of a critical darling. There's been a few of those. A couple of stinkers, but...
Oh, yeah. No, but it's been
have,
really good overall.
What have been some of your favorite games or like that have come out recently that you guys have been able to talk about or...
Well, I actually one of the things that I want to do on the show is I really want to do like a halfway through the year, like what is like game of the year tier list, like what are our rankings right now?
Like an S rank,
like an S
rank.
There
you go. Yeah,
me and Sean actually we both had our same game of the year last week, but it might be changing already.
Mm-hmm.
But we did have we both had our same pick as of last week, which was Final Fantasy 16. No, Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16, the best way I can describe it, Welsh actually had the best descriptor. It's like Game of Thrones Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. I was listening to your guys' episode where you mentioned that, and you were talking about your gameplay a little bit. None of it like made any sense to me, but it all sounded pretty cool. It made me, while I was listening to you guys, it made me realize like how little I play video games and how much I would like to build it into my schedule and just like don't find the time for it, unfortunately.
Hey, something's got to give.
Yeah,
but
it's tough, man. A lot of hobbies, a lot of art.
Maybe work.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16 might have been like even too cinematic for some people. I think it had like 17 hours of cutscenes alone. Mm-hmm. Which is insane.
Yeah, there was a whole heck of a lot of that. The production value on it was really outstanding. I think the motion capture performances, the voice acting, the direction of some of the sequences, they wove interactive insanity into like big boss fights in a really cinematic, like that's where the Dragon Ball Z aspect comes from. You'd go from like very tight character moments and kind of like political intrigue to the next second you're literally climbing up a man the size of a skyscraper who is like trying to kill you, and you're a dragon also.
Oh, sweet.
It's just like,
Yeah,
oh,
that
my
sounds
enemy
awesome.
got more powerful. Now I'll get more powerful. It's just like the
just
classic
like
Goku.
powering up,
Yeah.
and then clashing. It's really, the music is really
But then
phenomenal.
the
ebb and
flip
flow.
side of that is like family betrayal and like geopolitical wars and interests happening all at once, and the head of a family being beheaded immediately in the start of the game,
Okay.
kicking off like tragedy. You know, and it's
Very
super
Game
dark
of Thrones-y.
and super
Okay.
sad, but it's I teared up a lot during it, but it has an amazing ending. I was, by the end, I was clapping, I was cheering, I was crying.
I got that bittersweet
Right
feeling
now.
when you finish a really good book or a TV show or something, you know, where you
It's like,
you
now
don't want to
what?
say goodbye to the you don't want to say goodbye to the characters in the world, because you really feel like it's, you know, you're a part of it and it's part of you. And it's like, crap, yeah, what now?
Oh, and an incredible score. Incredible score. Very
love incredible
very
score.
big symphonies, a lot of operatics.
Yeah, they do something very cool in the game, which I didn't know actually until like reading a bit later on. The composer who's worked in the franchise for a very long time, Masayoshi Soken, I believe is his name. He created an entire kind of, not like an
not to
AI,
confuse with
but
Aaron Sorkin.
a different auteur in a different way. He created like a system that kind of dynamically raises and lowers parts of the music and kind of picks bits of it based on how you're playing and how you're doing. So actually, like the combat and stuff can like kind of, the music can come in at different points. It can play different parts of it, and it feels very like organic to you, because you'll be like in the middle of a fight, and then you throw a punch, and right on the punch, like, you know, doo, 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 like some drums come in, and you're like, how did they do that? You know, technology, man.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's a really cool
so
use
cool.
of that technology. Unlike other uses of that technology that we've come to read about and hear about in the news and all that stuff.
Just AI generated all. Who needs?
Man.
Yeah, who needs
AI generated everything?
Who needs actors?
Yeah, who needs them?
Okay, so we got here. Welsh, let's talk about the strike a little bit. You are in SAG. It is affecting you. I don't. Does it affect like your ability to do voice work? Like, have you still been doing voice work up until the strike? Like, how is this? Where do you sort of fit in? Give us like a personal sort of taste of what the SAG strike means for like a real person, and not, you know, not to say that you're not a star, because you are a star to us, but not
Thank
like
you so much.
Yeah,
not like a Tom Cruise level star.
You're just he's a bozo in the bottom 99.5% of the union.
Which is pretty much everybody.
I would never call you a bozo.
Dude, why would you say that to him? That was actually really rude.
It's really interesting to see. I'm personally thrilled about it. I hope that the union stands really strong to push back against a lot of the crap that's been, you know, coming towards actors, writers, creative people. For me as an actor, I only do voiceover work now. I don't do, like, you know, try to do film or TV or anything anymore. And voiceover stuff for the most part falls under a different contract. So I've been able to continue auditioning for stuff, but my agency has been very, like, you know, proactive about sending emails to everybody and being like, hey, just so you know, like, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. Because the specific contract that they're talking about are the theatrical contracts, which is like film and television, basically.
Is it different than, I thought it was also like Broadway, like plays, like theater?
No, that's a different the That's
Okay.
Actors Equity. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is, they have their own, you know, various issues too, because the theater world's tough, but
Screen Actors, right?
yes. Yeah. SAG-AFTRA, which is the Screen Actors Guild, and the American Federation of Radio and Television Artists, which merged 10 to 12 years ago. Used to be 2, now it's 1. It's actually how I got into SAG. I was an AFTRA member, and then they merged, and I got grandfathered in.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah. But it's wild, man. Like, really, to see it happen. Like, the industry has changed so much, even since I started as an actor when I was a teenager, when I was like 17 or so, and I started doing it professionally. Like, the way that streamers have come in and, you know, completely upended the traditional industry. And what people don't realize, and this is what I always try to, you know, say anywhere that I can when I'm having a conversation about this stuff, is people don't understand that writing, acting, being involved in like the film and television industry is a working class gig. at
Yeah.
best, like for 99% of people.
Yeah.
Folks think of actors as being, like your Tom Cruises, like you said, your Robert Downey Juniors, your multimillionaires. And it's like the
Mhm.
average Joe, like is not even making enough to get healthcare through the union. Like that's how tough it is for so many people. And people work their asses off. And, these big companies, these production companies just, they're pushing it as far as they can with not paying people for, it's a fair wage. That's all actors are looking for, just being
Yeah.
paid for their work.
And yeah, I mean, it's such a good point about like it being a working class sort of gig, or like people are just like, they're like career, like background actors, like career
Mhm.
extras who like, that's like, that's an honest profession. If you're someone who like knows how to be an extra in like a bunch of different TV shows or
Mhm.
something. And like, that's a really valuable skill that
Yeah.
can be used and like
There's,
appreciated. And because of that, like they should be compensated accordingly. And I don't know, maybe given healthcare, like healthcare is like
yeah,
for most people,
there's
for all
one of
people.
my favorite, I agree completely. One of my favorite bits was in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. If we have any fans of that show, got less good. Started off pretty strong.
It's
Um,
it's the sequel to 30 Rock.
is it really officially,
Like spiritually.
canonically?
Spiritual.
Where Titus Burgess's character, he basically plays himself in the show. Very funny actor, great singer. He goes to the funeral of an actor who was, an old man, like in his 80s or something like that. And like the whole kind of joke, it's like kind of an in joke among actors of like, someone who works as an actor literally their whole life, like potentially tens, dozens, hundreds of credits to their name, and nobody knows who they are, and he
Yeah.
goes to this guy's funeral, and like everybody there, like loved him, like sweet old man. But the whole kind of joke is that like they're like talking about like, oh, you remember seeing him in that part on Law and Order, that kind of thing. And he has this like crisis where he's like,
Yeah.
I don't want that to be me, this kind of thing. And like people don't realize like every movie, every TV show, and this is just that acting perspective too. Like writers are a whole nother ballgame. You
Yeah.
can't have it without the writers. But like every movie, every TV show, you think of the 2, 3, 4, 5 main actors, but hundreds of people. Every scene you see, every bar, every single person in that shot's an actor.
Yeah.
Like,
Unless we remove, those people and replace them with, some sort of computer generated image of
they're
folks.
trying, man. They're trying.
Yeah.
It makes me so nervous. It's just like seeing this stuff happen. It's crazy. We never, would have thought that this was possible. Now you see Netflix, Disney, all of them hiring, multi-million-dollar paying positions where it's like, yeah, we're just looking into like what our options are for AI. And it's like, of course you are.
Yeah.
The mouse must feed.
But no, it is cool. It is great to see. I love seeing the unions like striking. I don't, obviously I hate that like people are suffering on wages right now, but it feels like media is in a big moment of decision making, like who's going to control what we see, how much of what we see is going to be directly like fed to us through whatever means the conglomerates want it to be fed to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also applies to games right now too. Like video game is going through the same kind of big moment with the Microsoft Activision merger.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how much consolidation and how much corporate control are we going to give to like over, big chunks of the industry.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see these things all happening kind of at once. There's also some AI stuff happening in games as well, like discussion over like AI created games or generated games and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's it's a big moment right now. And I'm glad that people are sticking to their guns, especially from the striking side.
Yeah. We thought AI would replace, the manual labor, and yet here it is replacing one of the few forms of humanity's expression in the cosmos. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I don't know if we talked about this move towards like AI and the algorithmification of like art, and how it, like you guys said, it's affecting like gaming. It's obviously affecting movies. There's a lot of weird stuff with like if you like look into how Spotify operates, they push like a lot of playlists that are intended to be like passive listens, and it's just like all sort of part of this like weird, it's obviously not a conspiracy, but these sort of aligned plans of like these big corporations and entities to like keep you hooked on like what is like essentially like not trash, because people do still make it, but it doesn't like appreciate art in the way that it fully should be appreciated. But Banana, I wanted to ask you, sort of similar to how Welsh, like you're, even though it's not like active work that you're doing right now, but the SAG strike is sort of affecting your, you know, your once lived in world of acting. I understand, Banana. I feel like you've told me that there have been some changes in Twitch and like how it operates and things that they're doing that have like affected actual streamers. Like what's the update there? How does that affect your actual stream on the platform? How does it affect your experience as a streamer on the platform? What's going on?
Yeah, streaming is going through like a really interesting phase right now. The platform's in an interesting space. You have like a lot of different competitors kind of starting to pop up. A lot of the big changes that they made really affect like bigger streamers, which is good. But I think it's really all about, it's kind of the same conversation of just like how are like the conglomerates treating their, you know, workers basically, because people on stream, especially the people who, you know, have a few hundred subscribers, right? Like they're probably making a living off of making content and spending a lot of time essentially working for Twitch, you know? So it's like, that's a big part of it. And you see a lot of things from Twitch, like they're lowering the revenue sharing, right? Or they're lowering revenue sharing and then like increasing ads. So it's like they're essentially, because they have such a big hand in the space, they don't care how bad the product is for the user. They just want to make as much money off ad rev as possible. And then you have competitors coming in with like 90-10 revenue splits, where Twitch used to be like 75-25 for like the bigger creators. Now it's like 50-50 for everybody. And a 50% rev split is insane.
Yeah,
that's wild.
For actual work and like things that you're creating. It's not
exactly.
Like Twitch is like doing any of the. They're just
and on top of the 50-50 rev split, they mandate 3 minutes of ads an hour. So it's like it's insane. Like it's such a good example of when one company has too much market share of a space. So you're seeing competitors start to pop up, but there's a lot of problems with them. But they are starting to like sign big streamers, which is interesting. It's an interesting space.
Have they approached you to poach?
Yeah, I've gotten a couple of contracts, but contract offers, but you know,
you're loyal.
I'm loyal. I'm loyal to Bezos.
Team Purple.
Team Purple.
Jeff.
Team Jeff.
The biggest competitor right now popping up is Kick.com. I don't know if you've heard of Kick.com, but the big issue is that they're backed by a giant crypto gambling parent holding company.
Oh, that explains.
So it's like how much of that is just being set up as a pipeline for kids to end up on the stake.com, which is the crypto gambling. I don't know if you saw it. It was in the New York Times. It's kind of crazy. XQC is like one of the big streamers. He got $100 million deal from Kick.
Yeah, I saw that his deal, like if you were to like compare it to like the top athletes around the world, he makes more than everyone besides like Ronaldo and Mbappe.
Yeah.
Like he makes more money than like LeBron James and Messi. Like it's absolutely insane.
It's nuts. And I mean, on one hand, it's like kind of gross to see that kind of money being thrown around, but at this, especially from like a crypto gambling backed platform, right? That's like where it kind of,
because we haven't seen any instances of crypto, standing in for like a total sham and fraud in the last 12 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the last like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It is interesting seeing like and like a new class of like celebrity, kind of like emerging, or just that whole thing. And I say this with love because I am also a basement dweller. Like, these are people who just, many of whom are just playing games in their basement, like chilling on camera, that kind of thing. And you're seeing them like blowing up in the mainstream and like making so much money. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, if you had told someone 10 years ago, 20 or more, they would actually think you were insane that this would be a thing one day. It's pretty wild to see.
So we're gonna go from this conversation about the future of art and content. I don't like the word content. The word content always feels very icky to me. It feels like a commodity that's just to be sold. It feels like it has no heart and soul.
It feels purely functional.
It's how Zaslav refers to every movie ever made.
Yeah, like you don't turn on Netflix because you want to watch content. Like, you turn on Netflix because you want to find new art to connect to. I even think what we're doing, what Banana, what you do on Twitch, Welsh, what you do in your voiceover work, like, we are creating art if we approach it that way. Like, podcasting can be art. So let's try to make some good art tonight. But yeah, we're gonna go from this conversation about like the future of digital content and all that stuff, and we're
all
gonna
the way back to the first movie.
We're gonna look back 55 years in the rear
ever made
and talk about an old Western movie starring Clint Eastwood, who is currently, I think I looked it up. I think right now 195 years. And this movie came out when he was still a young man.
This movie came out when he was 74.
And he looked great for his age.
But yeah, you guys are here to talk the good, the bad, and the ugly. The classic spaghetti western. This is going to be a pretty fun episode because neither of you had seen this movie prior to watching it for this. So I think this is the second time we're doing this season, where taking a gamble with a guest who has not seen the movie of the week, which is always kind of spicy because, like, what if you guys watched it and hated it? Like, we're here at the Canon, we're supposed to be like celebrating these essential movies and talking about why they're so great and why we love them so much and why others should watch them if they haven't watched them yet. But I assume both of you guys liked it.
Nope. It was great. Cut the mic.
I loved it, man. I had so much fun. I really did watching this movie for so many reasons.
Yeah.
I also really liked it a lot. I haven't watched a lot of Westerns, specifically spaghetti Westerns. Mm-hmm. So it's just funny to see. It's just so funny to see like that genre in its purest form. Purest form at its peak.
Yeah.
You know
it is a genre, and this movie in particular, like the Sergio Leone films, like parodied, pastiched, like part of the pop culture our whole lives, I think. And actually going back and seeing it in earnest, like this is it. This isn't a version of it. It was just so cool. So many of the things that have inspired other directors and cinematographers and writers and stuff. Like, it's a piece of history. It really is.
It is a piece of history. And I think you guys bring up a good point that this is the definitive spaghetti Western. If someone is like, hey, I'm getting into movies, I'm trying to tackle a bunch of different genre right now that I want to get into is spaghetti Westerns, what should I watch? You would say The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So we got some initial thoughts on what you guys thought of it as first time viewers. So yeah, like, was there a main takeaway that you had from this movie besides like, oh, I'm witnessing a piece of history right here? Like, was there anything specifically that stood out about the film itself?
I think the biggest thing that stood out to me about the film, and I'm trying to remember where this at what point in the film this hit me, but I think at some point along the way, I was like, this isn't even a movie about the characters. This is a movie about the land and the time that the land is going through. Because like, it felt like the characters were a vehicle to show you different snapshots of where were they? Were they in Texas?
I think it takes place in Texas.
It was supposed to show you like a snapshot of like the deserts in Texas during the Civil War, and like how the different parts of of Texas were living or struggling through the war. And and the cowboy era. And I thought that was so cool. Like I feel like it's very rare where to me the characters feel like a driver for you to experience technically the backdrop of the movie, as opposed to like the backdrop being along for the ride with the characters. But I think it was around the point where they ended up being prisoners of war, and not prisoners of war, when they ended up at the bridge fight, and it was just showing you like how different things were happening all around the state, and like how this war was happening. And it just felt very like, and you're kind of going through this short arc of the alcoholic captain, and seeing people die and everything, and it's just like, it just felt more of a story about Texas to me than it did about a cowboy.
That's a good show.
I had that takeaway as well, and I think that's such a great way of describing it. Like, I didn't know going into this that it was. I would describe this as a Civil War movie. I think, like, in a lot of ways, which I did not even know going into it. And I was like, I thought, like, you know, you see a couple of soldiers, and I was like, oh, okay, that's the backdrop. And then it's like, no, that's actually kind of like, it's like anti-war. It's like you know, senseless violence, and like the chain of command and authority. And you just have these characters that are kind of, like you said, they're literally just blowing with the wind on their way to try and get this treasure, and, you know, experiencing these things.
The mortared town. They stop at like the missionary where people are like injured and healing.
So many bombs going off throughout the whole movie.
Those set pieces were the main parts of the story for me. Literally.
Oh, someone turned the movie on.
It felt like those different scenes were like what was really being like what the emphasis of the movie was for me.
Yeah, it's so interesting to watch this too, knowing, you know, with the term spaghetti western, like, and looking into the history of it, like, this movie was, you know, directed, written, produced, and starring mostly Italians in that period of time. And it's so interesting that it's like these people were kind of so fascinated, I guess, by this time period in American history. And it's like an Italian artistic team kind of looking at like the Civil War in America and like making a commentary on it. I was like, so interesting, like kind of a cross of cultures and perspectives and stuff.
The cross of cultures is great.
The other thing that stood out to me, which I know Welsh brought up pretty early on, is like how funny the movie is. And like, I also wasn't expecting it to be so funny. And I think my favorite joke, which it took me like a solid 5 seconds for it to register, and I like laughed out loud, is in the very beginning when Tuco goes to the convenience store, and he you know, he's kind of being really nice with the guy, and the guy's really nice to him, and then he just like robs him right at the very end, and he comes over and he's like, come over here, and he takes the close sign, and he's like, he tells him to open his mouth, and he puts the close sign in his mouth, like, keep your mouth closed. And I was like, wow, that's hilarious. Like, and it just, I pictured theaters in the 60s like roaring over how funny that was.
Yeah.
And then for some reason my brain went to like, it like fast forwarded like 50 years to The Hangover, where it's like paging Dr. F word, and I'm like, wow, we went from like these jokes, like hilarious, well thought out set piece jokes, to just saying the F slur. And it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's... And it's like, man, I kind of wish I was back in '68.
That's so interesting. That makes me think like the same kind of time period, like 60s, 70s, like the famous Gene Wilder quote when, you know, someone asked him why he had pretty much retired. And he said, you know, I read a lot of scripts, and he's like, I just don't really think they're funny. Like, I don't think that, you know, in his opinion, like crass language, you know, like that kind of stuff. He's like, I don't think it's really, really very funny. And it's true. You know, you go back farther, it's like, they made do with like pretty simple concepts, like comedically and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's harder to find that these days.
Yeah. I also noticed that they would like censor out curse words like almost as much as possible, with like loud bangs and stuff. At like the very last line of the movie is, I think he calls he calls Clint Eastwood like a dirty son of a bitch, but they like
Yeah,
completely
like,
blow
yeah,
over.
with the music going like,
the score
Yeah,
comes in
yeah.
when he's
that's
it's
funny. Yeah,
great.
for sensitive ears in the 60s. Yeah, it
Um,
was funny. Like in the first, just the performance of Eli Wallach as Tuco is pretty iconic. I think that he was just thoroughly entertaining the whole time. Apparently, that part was written for him specifically, and they like desperately wanted him to play that part. And it made
he's
me want to read a book
incredible.
about his life. Like really wild
Yeah,
actor, very diverse career.
he has an autobiography, I think,
Oh,
and he goes into some stuff about his experience in the movie that I'll save a little bit later for some fun bits of trivia. You guys bring up a lot of great points. Too many great points. I don't even know which one to take as like a jumping off point. The humor stuff is really interesting because like the Tuco character is very funny, and to me, much of the movie outside of him is not that inherently funny. But while I was doing research prepping for this episode, I read that a few reviews where people were calling it a satire, and I have never read this movie as a satire. I've seen it maybe like somewhere between 3 to 5 times, and I've never once in my life thought about it as a satire because I don't think it's like a laugh out loud funny movie besides Tuco, but it is a super interesting read of the movie. And then sort of with that, and I'm going to kick it back over to you guys. Apparently when this movie first came out in the States, critics and maybe some audiences were not too keen on it because of how it like depicted the American Civil War, violence within the American Civil War. It didn't take a moral stand on the war besides the fact that war is awful. It wasn't like pro union or pro
right.
Confederacy. It was just anti-war and anti all who participated in it. And it also kind of is like a dig at the Western genre as American audiences like knew to love it. So much of 20th century American culture can be told like through the Western. We thought that we knew so much about ourselves as a country and like what our morals were and all of that good stuff through the Western. But then this movie comes along. You have this outsider, Welsh, like you were saying, this outsider perspective who comes along and is like, hey, the American West was like kind of bullshit. And it literally was a bunch of outlaws all fending for themselves. Even if they are going through active battles within the Civil War, all they care about is getting their own treasure, like getting some money so that they can do God knows what with it, and then move on to the next sort of big score. Apparently a lot of people in the States were not very happy with this movie when it came out, which is funny because now it's like considered a classic. So I'll kick it back to you guys and what you think about this movie as a satire, this movie as just like commentary on Westerns or the American West as a whole.
That's so many interesting points and ideas. I was like trying to keep track of that in my head on what to touch on. Like thinking of it as a satire is such an interesting way of looking at it, because I certainly didn't think of it that way when I was watching it, but it definitely is, I think, a commentary on so many of those things, like just the like you said, the American persona of rugged individualism, I got mine, trying to kind of like get ahead in the world, which is kind of what the main characters we see, for all their different reasons, are kind of trying to do. The three guys, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like they all have their own motivations. Even Clint Eastwood, the man with no name, Blondie, he's like the good. He's like lawful neutral, I guess, if you could say. Like he kind of plays by the rules.
He's kind of a shithead.
Yeah, like he's fair, but he's not like, you wouldn't want to hang out with him. He's still trying to get money too and go off and do his own thing. And then like that's just juxtaposed by, again, like this violence between these two sides in the war. And I had the thought while I was watching, I thought, again, thinking of this from the perspective of, people who clearly knew a lot about American history and were passionate about it, but like, people in Europe kind of telling this story about it. And the depiction of the two sides of the war, I thought was very interesting, because like you said, they weren't saying like, oh, like the Confederates are bad, the Union's good, or vice versa. It was kind of like showing like a sympathetic view toward both sides, which I thought was really interesting, especially in like the current political climate in America. Being like, oh, like we're getting a little bit of like the both sides kind of stuff here, which is interesting to see. Like one of the core parts of the story is, a corrupt Union camp, the administration of this Union prisoner camp, and Angel Eyes and kind of his taking of this, he's part of the good guys, quote unquote, in the Union, but it's like he's taking advantage of that authority. He's a bad person, and it's like so interesting. You have like, I don't know. It's like the take on all these different aspects of like the romanticized West kind of being this just place where the American spirit was born and also like was at its best and worst in so many ways. It's really interesting.
It's an icky mirror for us to look in as Americans of like, wait, we romanticize this period of time and this like place in the physical world where we thought that all of these things were true. We thought that John Wayne was always a great guy and he was fighting off those, bad guy. Like, as kids, like you grow up in America and you play the game of cowboys and I words and like the cowboys are the good guys and the I words are the bad ones because that's what Westerns taught us. And then if you like think about it for 2 seconds, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound so right. Like maybe those movies were wrong. And this movie comes along and it's like everyone was fucked. Like all of it. I also was wondering what you guys thought about the title. I guess we can do two things about the title. So the one sort of obvious thing is that like this title has been played on so many times. Like whenever you're describing something, you do the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the good, the bad, and add a word. We should also decide who amongst us is the good, who is the bad, and who is the ugly. Maybe we can do that at the end.
Hashtag Team Ugly, baby.
Let's go. Damn, I was kind of gunning for ugly.
We're probably all gonna gun for ugly. That's the coolest one. That's Tuco, man.
Yeah, Tuco's amazing.
Yeah, who doesn't want to play Tuco?
I'm the only Mexican, so I feel like that's an easy one.
Damn, that's true.
Damn, I feel like I can't be bad as the only black guy.
I'll be the bad guy. It's 2023.
You're done.
I'm done. I'm canceled.
So after I watched this, I was looking back on my Letterboxd review and sort of patting myself on the back for my reading of the movie. But apparently I rewatched this a couple of years ago, and my big takeaway at that point was that the title, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and like those three designations for the three characters aren't so much indicative of like who they are as people, because you watch the movie and they're all after the same thing. There's not much that separates Blondie from Angel Eyes from Tuco in terms of like their moral standing or
motivations,
actions, their motivations as characters. So my take was that it's more so a description of how they're left at the end. The bad, he's dead in a ditch. He's in a bad situation. Blondie, he makes off with, $100,000 in gold coins. He's in a pretty good situation. Tuco is in an ugly situation. He has the money, but his hands are tied. He has no way of like actually getting it or getting out of the situation. He's like so close, but so far away. I don't know if you guys agree with this reading, if you think I'm crazy, or just like what you think about the characters and what their sort of names or designations within the title mean.
Yeah, I actually like looking at it that way, because the whole movie, like I was having a tough time discerning them like between their titles, especially Clint Eastwood's character, because he was not like he was not good like in any way. Like he was a complete asshole. And you know what I mean? Like he was just he was double dipping. He was like playing with people's lives on like a couple $1,000s over and over, like, and then he made a dude walk 100 miles in the desert. It was like 70 miles. It's like he did horrible things. He didn't do anything that was like, honestly, I think that the hitman dude maybe even had more of a moral code than him. Because he was like, even he was like, Angel Eyes. He was like, I always finish a job.
She
Yeah,
had more of a code. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
blondie would take money and run.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I had a similar thought about that. You know, the last thing we had watched and talked about together here was, you know, No Country for Old Men, and thinking about like psychopaths with a code. And that was something I
Right.
actually thought about a lot in this, because like, you know, it's a big thing in the Wild West, is like everybody kind of had like a code that they lived by, or their own set of morals. And like Angel Eyes specifically, I thought was really interesting, because like, you know, he's the bad, and we see him kill an old man in his bed, basically, like over some money. But it's like, he does have this code of, which I actually wish we had kind of seen a bit more of.
Yeah,
where he's
right.
like, you know,
He got paid to do that.
yeah, he was like, when I'm paid, I finish the job. And he like takes pleasure in that, which is so interesting. It's like, then you have Clint Eastwood, who like, yeah, like I guess kind of has his own set of morals too, in his own way. Like he, you know, splits the money still, even at the end when he doesn't have to, but it's like, he's not a good guy. It's almost like, you know, the classic like white hat, black hat in like the Western stuff, where it's like, you know, you've got two sides of the same coin, where it's like, they're all outlaws, but like kind of the different approach to it. It's interesting.
Yeah. I guess Eastwood sort of does kind of wear a white hat in this movie, but he's not a hero.
He's no James
Right.
Marsden in Westworld. I'll tell you that much right now. No one could
James
be.
Marsden is in Westworld.
Oh yeah,
Never made
Is
it
he
to
the
season
main guy?
2.
he was one of the main guys in season 1. Yeah, rest in peace. Didn't make it to season 2. That's for the best.
He's in season 1.
Yeah, he's
I
great
love
in
that
that
show.
Yeah.
So, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, where'd we live off? I actually forgot.
The
we're
good,
just
the
talking
bad,
about-
and the ugly. Yeah. Raph,
just-
I actually think that's a really cool. Oh, sorry. No,
Go for it.
It's an interesting way of looking at the end of the movie. I think that's a really cool interpretation. I guess I was thinking about it the whole time through, of just, again, like moral codes, like the way they approach things. Because I had that thought too. It's like, you know, Clint Eastwood, the good. And I was like, oh, he's going to be like, you know, heroic. And he's not. He's
Yeah.
just kind of like, almost like just a blank slate, where like, you know, you have
It's
two
like
different.
an anti-hero.
Yeah.
the
Like
best way to
one
put
is like, I guess the ugly, I think of Tuco as kind of being like someone who, he's not like, I guess, you know, what is evil, I suppose, but it's like, he doesn't really have a code. He's just willing to do whatever it takes to just kind of get anywhere and get what he wants and get what he needs.
Yeah, he's kind of just a survivor.
He's still throwing up the Father, Son, Holy Spirit every time someone dies, or every time he comes across a dead body.
It's always like
Catholic,
it's always like a fake one. He does like a circle. Yeah, it looks like a baseball player after they hit a home run and they're coming to home.
Yeah, they kiss off at the end.
Yeah, they kiss up. Me, Big Tuco.
And I did think it was interesting that like they were able to. I'm trying to think if Tuco was the only one who got this treatment actually, but I thought the scene with him and his brother was like really interesting, where they were like really instilling like a bit of humanization within Tuco, and maybe he needed it the most out of the three.
Yeah.
But like I thought that was a really interesting scene where they were able to still kind of like instill this bit of like he kind of got screwed like as a kid, like he you know, like his brother left the family, he had to like take care of the family, and he kind of just has been like broken since 10 years old. And it's like you feel bad, you know, you feel bad for him in that moment.
He's the only human one out of the three, and I feel like the way that I'm reading the end, where he's the ugly and he's so close to the money but he's so far away, is sort of how most Americans like live their lives, which is kind of a depressing thought, but in a way, like we are all Tuco. Like we're in pretty bad situations. Yes, there are some people who are laying beside us dead in a grave, but there's also that weird blonde guy who took half of our money and rode off and left us in a position where we can't actually get our money, and we have to like literally jump through hoops and do like a whole bunch of crazy stuff to hope that we can someday get the same amount of money that he has as he rides off into the distance. So it makes sense that he's the only one who has some sort of human background and a family outside of, the immediate things that are happening on the screen.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting.
Damn.
Also the I don't know why, but like, was this like the first big time where they had someone's head get smashed on a rock, like murdered via
Oh yeah, that was brutal.
That was brutal.
He
took
that guy down.
Brutal.
I was like, is he gonna jump off the train? No, he did.
One of the great pieces of trivia from, what is his name? Eli Wallach, from Eli Wallach's autobiography.
He actually killed that guy.
Is yeah, that guy was an extra, and he didn't realize that it was a real rock underneath it, and they were supposed to do a stage hit. No, that's not what happened.
He got very into character.
In the moment where he puts the dead body underneath the train tracks so that the train can like break the handcuff, they wanted Eli Wallach to actually be there, so it like clearly wasn't a stunt double, and he didn't realize how close he was to the train, and apparently one of the wheels, he claims, came within inches of taking his head off.
I believe that. Well, even in the actual scene, I was like kind of nervous. I was
too. I was like, he's really there, isn't he? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like pretty close.
Yeah. My favorite part of that was like the shot under the train where you see it just drag the guy's body for a bit, and he's kind of like bouncing off the rocks. I was like, oh, that's like pretty brutal for like the 1960s.
Again, this movie is more viscerally violent than most westerns that came before it. You see like actual blood and
guts,
and guts and stuff, and it's like it's brutal and unrelenting, and it's like also the spaghetti westerns are dirty. They look dirty. It's not a handsome guy who is riding into town. I mean, Clint Eastwood is like a total babe in this movie. Like, let's not get it twisted, but it's not this very like clean produced Hollywood looking vision of the West. It's weird, outer these weird locations on like the outskirts of Spain that are dusty and dirty, and a lot of the extras and like smaller actors in the movie are just like random Spaniards that they found who look like they live in the sun all day and like are like tomato farmers or something, and not pretty people that you find on a Hollywood studio lot. And like all of that sort of like adds to the movie. I was going to say adds to the mystique of the movie, but the mystique about the movie is that it takes away from the mystique of American Westerns.
It is so interesting, especially like the extras and the bit parts. Like, I think it had like almost an otherworldly kind of quality in a weird way, because like some of the actors like were so clearly dubbed over by like some American voice actor, and it's just like, oh, that's probably some guy who had like the world's thickest Italian or Spanish accent. But like,
I think a lot of them just spoke
so interesting.
They just spoke Italian or Spanish on set, and then they were like, yeah, we'll dub it over later.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the only other like grunginess to it was some of the janky voiceover, which is hilarious. Because the first time I noticed it, I was like, wait, is that a VO?
Yeah.
Like, is that voiced over?
My
like,
favorite.
Oh, yeah, that's 100% voiced over.
Yeah, the drunk Union captain was my favorite part, because he has a big, like, long scene there where he's like laughing and emoting, and like the actor was giving it his all, but it was like so obviously like someone voicing over it. And it's just like, and then I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it was like that was an Italian actor, and it was just so. I'm just like, I wish I could hear the original audio. Of them doing that scene, and like.
That must be amazing acting at someone on set and they're just speaking a language you don't understand.
Dude, and also
Clint Eastwood's like, did he say the thing that I thought that the script said? I have no idea. Just go along with it.
The old shopkeeper had some of the best expressionism in his face I've ever seen. Like he looked like a
sad cartoon dog.
You know that dude was like a 1920s like vaudevillian like elite.
Yeah,
I actually want to look him up, because like I guarantee you he's probably like, I could have been Chaplin if I didn't fall off the unicycle. You know what I mean? Like he was like one slip up away from being like a big
Yeah.
His expressions were just so good. Like the way he was looking at Tuco every time Tuco would like do something stupid or like say something where he was supposed to guess, and he would just look at him like, come
Yeah.
on. It's like,
I have his Wikipedia page up right now. That's pretty extensive, actually.
when did he die?
1967, very shortly after.
Oh wow, that was like a year after this movie came out.
He was born in
His last
1897. An old king.
Wow.
Enzo Petito was an Italian film and stage character actor, a theater actor.
Nice.
Yeah.
Movies used to cast ugly people and just
They
let
did.
them be beautifully ugly. You know,
They got to bring that back, man. I feel very passionate about that. Things are so produced right now. Even the people on screen feel produced. Give me weird people.
We got like the Rooney sisters or the Mara sisters.
Yeah, I mean they have interesting faces. I don't know. There's something about like the dude who had no legs, who is giving Angel Eyes all the info.
That was amazing.
That's just a dude that they found. I mean, I'm sure he's an actor who has no legs, and he had the grossest teeth I've ever seen. And that's not hair and makeup. That's not sitting in hair and makeup for hours. That's just an ugly dude.
Yeah,
who they put in the movie.
His vibe.
They were roaring when Angel Eyes goes, "Thanks, soldier." Half soldier.
Do you hear what he says when he walks into the saloon?
Yeah. He's like,
pass me down a whiskey.
Yeah, pass me down a whiskey.
Pass me down a whiskey.
I had to pause the movie at that moment. I was like, he didn't just say that.
It's
great.
great.
He was like bursting through the swing doors.
Yeah, with his head, he puts his head down so that he can burst through. It's great. The first shot of the movie is, and this is something that I found out during my research, not something that I picked up on myself, but it sort of breaks the rules in terms of like establishing shots and how we understand space in movies. And usually you get an establishing shot that's like, here's where your movie is going to take place, and then it will cut to your characters or something, and at that point you're like, okay, and here's like the story that we're going to tell. And in this one, it starts with this wide shot of the landscape, and then another ugly guy, but just some dude comes into frame. It kind of looks like when you're taking a video on vacation, if you're on like a safari or something, and then an ostrich just like walks right in front of your camera and doesn't know that it's being filmed. Like the dude just like pops in, and it's another ugly guy. And from the jump, you're like, oh, okay, like this isn't going to be like our typical sort of Western in the way that I'm used to it, because it's not even cutting to go from landscape to a person's face. And also everyone in this movie is going to be hideous besides Clint Eastwood and, maybe a few other folks here and there. But it's just like, I don't know. I love the whole vibe of this movie. I feel like this was one of the first movies that I watched where I realized that I really dig a movie that establishes a certain vibe and just goes with that and lets that lead the direction, as opposed to we need a story and good characters and good character development to sort of take us along the way.
Yeah, I agree. I had that thought the whole time I was watching it. Like I said early on, like how much this inspired a lot of people's own creative stuff. I think Quentin Tarantino said that he thinks this is like the best directed movie of all time, or one of the best directed movies.
I think
I agree completely. Like Sergio Leone's like just vision for the way, like just setting up these shots and like these weird things, like were so, at the time probably so, like you said, weird and like unsettling and different from kind of how you see these things normally set up. And like there's so many wacky shots of like you said, like long lingering things in the distance, then sudden cuts over. My favorite is when it does like the quick cut, zoom, and then it zooms in on something, cuts to something else, zooms in, cuts, zooms in, and it's got the soundtrack blaring in your ears. It's like very manic and kind of like like one of my big takeaways from this is like for a 3-hour movie, there's like no room to breathe in the best way. You're kind of like always going from like one thing into the next. It's like, a gunfight, or it's like some important, development of the characters, or it's like a comedy scene. It's like just relentless. And I really, really enjoyed that. It felt like you were kind of like on this journey with these weird, dirty guys. And it was just, like the tension that it built in some of those scenes was really, really palpable.
One thing that I was really taken off guard by, like completely rocked my world, is for some reason I always thought that the Ecstasy of Gold, which is that classic banger, I always
Absolute
thought
banger.
that song was like, for some reason I guess I thought like it was to a scene of like someone riding a horse like on a beach or something, but it is just to a Mexican dude robbing a grave, like desperately trying to rob a grave. And that was, I was like so shook by that. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I was laughing too. Like it's remarkable. It's just this he's sprinting. Like the camera is you're getting nauseated. Like it's just
I was expecting like as like Clint Eastwood rides up in like a grand savior moment. Nah, just this dude.
Oh, you think it's going to be something like,
so I can say it that way, but
you were expecting something like super stoic,
epic,
like regal, epic,
right? Sun shot behind him, super close up shot as he rides into the frame.
Yeah, no, it's a manic moment of where the camera is whirling around so that you can't even see what's going on while this like amazing score is blaring in the background, and you're like, this is the most beautiful piece of music that I've ever heard, but also I can't see what's going on the screen. And I think Tuco is maybe losing his mind and is going to pass out from heat stroke in about 3 seconds.
It's so funny.
It's wild. The whole sequence is one of the most amazing things I think ever put to screen. The shots of him running through the cemetery.
Sad Hill.
The fact that the cemetery is named Sad Hill is hilarious. These guys have just spent the last 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes on this epic quest for $200,000 in gold that, again, they're going to do God knows what with it afterwards, just derp around the West or whatever. They go through war and seem completely unfazed by the fact that they have witnessed the bloodiest war in American history. They're just like, yeah, whatever. There's some money over there, so we got to get to it. And finally, Tuco gets to what he thinks is going to be the money, and he's so swept up by it that the music starts blaring, and then you can't see what's going on. It's absolutely incredible.
I guess thematically though, it does make a lot of sense, because I'm just realizing that he is experiencing the ecstasy of gold. Or like the promise of gold. Like he is going manic in his head. Like he is so close that he's hearing these angels singing to him, because he's just so close to having it all.
Oh shit! I didn't.
He's the dog who's about to catch the car. That's like that moment is the manifestation of the dog, like seconds before it catches the dog, the car.
But it's like you said, the Sad Hill is. It's so cool. Like I was very entranced by the whole sequence, the whole time that the movie spends in that set piece. I was like just Googling the movie after I finished it, because I had vaguely remembered that it was part of a trilogy. Or like the Man with No Name was like a Clint Eastwood character, and I was just kind of clicking around. And one thing I stumbled upon was that they had built that entire Sad Hill Cemetery set piece for the movie, which is crazy. Like they built the whole thing. And then I found out that there's like a whole organization that like they have like a big celebration there. They had one there in like, I think the early 2000s maybe, or the late 90s, where they had like producer and Clint Eastwood there. And they had this big party where like everybody like went and like put their name on a grave. There's like a whole committee around like the Sad Hill. Like it's like an actual place you can go to. It's like they renovated it to make it like up, to give it some upkeep.
Yeah. They even buried some bodies there.
Hell yeah. Angel Eyes. See ya.
I guess while we're here,
interesting character. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Well, let's table the the rest of the Sad Hill conversation and go back to the characters, because we spoke a decent amount about Tuco, but we should also want to get your guys' thoughts on Angel Eyes, and then I also want to get your guys' thoughts on Clint Eastwood, because I feel like we should probably talk about him when talking about this movie.
He's not that important.
Welsh, why don't you give us your thoughts first on Angel Eyes?
I was really compelled by him. I think in a lot of ways because Lee Van Cleef was such a striking actor. Just that very first scene you see him in with those eyes and like that sharp mustache.
Sharpest mustache you've ever seen.
Unbelievably sharp. I was like, oh my God, I got to go trim this freaking thing on my lip right now. Also, I felt very represented by a lot of men with mustaches in this movie. And I appreciated that because I'm trying to bring it back. It's just like he walks into the frame, and it's like we were saying about like, just odd looking actors and stuff. Like what a striking just presence, and like the voice that comes out of him and everything, like born to play, that role, born to play like the kind of the villain with a code,
like the Man in Black kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And I really liked his character. I was actually a little disappointed that like we didn't get a bit more development on him, because I thought like the start of the movie with him was so strong. Like I said, the kind of depiction of him as someone with a code who's like living this kind of like, bounty hunter life in a way, but like is clearly willing to kill anyone that gets in his way, or, anyone that he's told to kill, or that kind of thing. And it's so interesting that he is a person, of authority, who actually has like a military government position, which I think is really interesting, that it's like, the authority, if you're looking at anyone in that time and place with authority, you might say it's like, someone in the military or like a sheriff or something. Like that. It's the classic lawman who's dealing on the side, which is really cool. And I felt a little let down that like the second half of the film, it's just kind of like, all right, now he's just like in the background kind of, doing deals and stuff. But yeah, I liked him very much as a villain with a code who just clearly had no regard. He's like torturing prisoners to get information and to get stuff from them, like just to take their things. It's like, I would watch a whole movie about that, like someone who's in that position of power who's abusing it. But I guess, obviously the movie wasn't about that, so they kind of had to move on to other things. But yeah, really, really interesting to see that kind of depicted that way, because I'm sure there are some people who might have had their feathers ruffled by, like I said, the Union Army being presented as, not perfect. Like there were people who abused their power anywhere, which is really cool to see.
What? No.
I thought it was, but I agree. I do wish we saw more of him. Like, it was so cool how how powerful the opening scene was. Like this dude rolling up to the house, like just yeets the entire family. Like when that kid comes rolling down the stairs and just gets popped, it's you're like, wow, wow. That's such a, because he does it with no regard at all. He just like, instant pops that kid, and it's I kind of for a minute thought like he was gonna be the ugly, because he was so like presented as such like raw evil in the very upfront. But then in my eyes, he kind of became like a mirror image of Blondie in a way, right? It's like like to me, it was like they were almost like mirror images of each other, and then Tuco was like a bizarro combination of them both.
He's the wild card.
Yeah, he's wild card.
I think the character of Charlie is based off Tuco.
Are you serious?
No.
I want that to be true so bad. I'm just
Tuco is the inspiration for all wild cards across across media.
I obviously the obvious connection. I obviously had to look up if Tuco from Breaking Bad was named after him, which he is, which is also.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that's awesome. That's a great piece of trivia.
I saw that in like the Google preview at the top of the page.
That counts.
Question. So
that counts.
Yeah. I didn't click one.
We'll take it. Yeah, that's good research. It's a good way to verify your sources.
You're welcome. You can have that one for free.
That's good journalism.
As a
we
treat.
can take that to air. Yep.
Tweet it, ship it.
Tweet it
But
out.
I do think it is.
Send
I do
in.
think it is cool. It's almost like when you find out one of your favorite artist songs is a cover.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like all of Sublime. Definitely my favorite artist.
Scarlet Begonias.
What'd you guys
They
think
covered the
of
Dead.
what'd you guys think of Clint Eastwood?
Oh yeah, I forgot about him. He was great. He was just like he's just the epitome of cool in the whole
So
time.
cool.
Just so
Just
cool. Like
so born
chomping on
to
a
play
cigar
Yeah.
the entire time.
I made
What
me
did he
want a
s-
cigar. I was like, oh man, uh-oh.
But
It
a
looks so
tiny
cool with
cigar
those things.
that you stick all the way in the back of your mouth. It seems like he's smoking it from the
Just
back of
pulling
his
it from,
jaw.
yeah.
from the rafters?
One of my favorite moments was when he gives Tuco a cigar and Tuco chomps a bit off of it to just like make it into chewing tobacco, I guess. I was just like, just took a bite out of that cigar.
Is that when they leave the missionary? Because I was also just thinking of that scene. Because
I think so, somewhere around
those are the moments that I noticed they were trying to like prop up Clint Eastwood as like the good, right? Where like
Mm-hmm.
Clint Eastwood in secret watches the scene unfold between Tuco and his brother, but he lets Tuco go on with the lie of like, oh, my brother loves me so much, blah blah, I'm so full, like, and he just kind of
Mhm.
lets him say all of that through his teeth, and then just follows up with like, well, you know what's good after a big meal? A cigar. And he hands him the cigar. And it's like, I feel like those were like the moments where we're supposed to be like, oh, he's such a good guy. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so
That
interesting.
also kind of Sorry, I was going to say that also kind of keeps up the mystique of the macho cowboy man. You
Mhm.
know, Clint Eastwood, Blondie isn't someone who wants to talk about feelings, whereas Tuco, who's a more human character, he's a little in touch with his emotions. You know, even though he lies about the situation with his brother, he still sort of understands the emotional pain that he's going through, and instead of like trying to help him in a real way, Blondie's just like, hey, we're men, why don't we just
Yeah.
freaking
that's
smoke
cool.
cigars about it?
That's what's cool, bro.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah,
Sorry,
it's like-
Welsh.
No, that's fine. I think that's a really cool point. Like the emotion of the characters is actually really interesting to think about too. Like especially in representations of masculinity on screen. Like Tuco's a crazy, wild, not necessarily a good guy, but like which of these three characters would you want to hang out with? At a party. Like,
Yeah.
I'd want to hang out with Tuco. He's by far you could have a great conversation with him. You couldn't really have a conversation with Blondie for sure.
The one thing that pissed me off about the movie was that it didn't have the best depiction of a panic attack in 2023 in 1969.
Which part?
66.
66.
I don't know what you're getting at. Welsh, what did you think of Clint Eastwood?
Oh, I was going to say, it was so cool to see this because, like, I'm familiar with Clint Eastwood from his work as an old man, his old man era.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen him.
Isn't he putting a new movie out like right now, or like just did?
Probably. He can't be stopped. He's like Stephen King. He just keeps pumping them out, which is great. Get that bag, Clint. But I'd never seen anything with him as a young man, which is obviously like really when he established himself. And to me, it made such clear sense because it's really hard to describe when someone has that like just that something about them that is just really like magnetic on screen. And like the man, I think if you counted his lines, he probably says about 20 words in the whole film. But each one, just you're like, yeah, hell yeah, dude. Like you just kind of like nod along to it. Like there's something about this like kind of effortless charisma he has that works so well for this part in particular, where he is literally playing the man with no name. He's playing the blank slate of just, I wonder to audiences of the time whether there was a feeling of him kind of being like the self-insert in a lot of ways, like, oh, that could be me, like if I were in the Wild West, because like he's just such a blank slate that just kind of like he just observes so much of what's going on, even though he is playing a part in it. There was one of my favorite probably my favorite moment in the whole film. I can't remember exactly when it is, but I remember like Tuco says a whole like borderline monologue to him, and is just like, "Did you get all that, Blondie?" And Clint just goes, "Yeah." And that's it. And it's the funniest thing. And it's just like, yeah, like that's all that needs to be said.
Does someone say it about them, or does Tuco say it about them? Where he's like, I'd never run out of words, and you don't, like, you never say anything. Or is that an observation that someone else makes? I don't know if you guys remember that part or that scene.
Yeah, no, that is in there for sure. I remember that. Which is interesting because I was reading about, a little bit about Eli Wallach, just talking about, the making of this movie and everything, and how he and Clint Eastwood had a very close friendship from this and onward for the rest of their lives. And it's funny, like he said that, basically like the way Clint is on the screen is kind of how he was like in real life working with him too. He was just like, I would be talking so much to him, and, he was just like, he would just be, so rapt attention on you, listening and reacting and calculating. And he's like, and he would just give you back exactly what you needed in the conversation. He wasn't a talker. He would just hear it all and be like, yeah, man, that's crazy. He was like the best friend I've ever had.
Crazy, he was the original Dan. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's funny that, like
original F it, we ball.
Like some actors are just born that way to really play that part so perfectly. Like very intelligent and very capable actor, but who's just so made to play that kind of part of just the straight man, the blank slate. But from a characterization standpoint, it is interesting. Like the good, I keep going back to that. Like, is he a good person? And I think the movie does kind of show that no one in the movie, I think is, like, is there anyone in the movie that you would say like is depicted truly as a good person? I mean, we don't really get too much time with anyone besides the three main guys, but
not really.
Everybody's kind of got their dirty little, way of doing things. But I guess what I took away from his part is like I said earlier, it's like, I'm trying to make sure I can back this up, but I guess my gut feeling was that like, it's less that he's good in like the sense that, he would help an old lady across the street, but more good in the sense of like, he's fair in his dealings. He's not going to like cheat someone. But I guess he kind of cheats Tuco at the beginning where he's just like, you're going to walk home. Yeah. It's like,
that's also his official introduction.
Yeah.
The intros.
Like, oh, he's good.
The intro for Bad is amazing. The intro for Tuco is incredible because it's the shortest one. It's just guys walk into a bar, you hear some gunshots, Tuco runs out with a chicken leg in his hand, ugly. It's like, okay, yeah, this guy rocks. This guy is awesome. I want to party with this dude. And you don't get the introduction for the good or like the title card for it until he says the thing to Tuco of like
manage your breath.
Manage your breath and you can make it back to town, which is like the most horrendous thing that you can say to someone. Good.
The good. Yeah.
Good.
Like,
yeah. Wait,
I think
what? About that.
Part of what was so like alluring about his character is, and we talked about this last time for No Country for Old Men, where it's like that concept of like competency porn, where it's just like the dude is just so smooth and like so good at everything that he does. Like there's no hesitation in his actions. That it's like it's just so satisfying to watch him like
shoot a rope from yards away.
From 50 yards, 100 yards away, like just no problem. And then also like when he's like walking through the town with Tuco and he's just like turn left, like just taking off the gang,
leaning on the wall. He's just like, you want to go do this thing? Like basically,
the movie doesn't even make a big deal about him being the fastest hand in the movie. No one's like, you're Blondie. You're the fastest hand gunslinger in Texas. He just shows up and just yeets everyone, just like you said. Bing, bing, bing,
yeah, they
nothing.
He shoots everyone's hats off, like every time they do the trick, just to like get everyone scared. But it's like it's like, and they zoot off. But it's also smooth. It's so satisfying to watch because this guy, it's no effort. It's just all cool all the time.
Yeah,
it is one of the.
Like every other character in the movie has like stakes to some degree, and you feel like with him, it's like there's just cool as a cucumber. Just like he's fine either way. Like he doesn't really need the money. You're like, he'll be okay. He could walk away from it. That kind of thing.
Is Clint Eastwood as the man with no name when someone says like movie cowboy, is he the first person you think of?
Yeah, I think so. Probably for me.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think, yeah.
Probably.
I think him over John
Him or
Wayne.
John Wayne.
Yeah, one of the two.
Oh,
But John Wayne's
I-
not as effortlessly cool as Clint Eastwood is as
No.
the man with no name.
No,
Not even
certainly
close.
John Wayne's
It's like, I want to be cool. I'm John Wayne. Come listen to me. I'm John Wayne. And Clint Eastwood pulls up as a man with no name. He's like, hey.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy in the corner at the party who doesn't say a word. And you're like, that guy.
Yeah, like,
That guy's
oh
really
my
cool.
God. That
That guy must listen to a lot of Sublime.
I'm trying to see like what year. I don't know if you know like what year John Wayne movies took place in versus this one is like the mid 1800s.
Yeah, I guess
good
John
question.
Wayne movies sort of
They were, like,
jump
later,
all over the
right?
place. They jump all over. There's, I think, the most famous one, The Searchers, which is also in the canon. We'll have an episode on that sometime in the future. I think that one takes place after the Civil War because he's like a retired war hero or something in that movie. So I think it sort of jumps all around. But yeah, it's weird that this is a war movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Like halfway through, it's just like
I was surprised
also
by
the
that,
Civil
yeah.
War is here. Yeah, it's not what
Wanna
you
blow up a
expect.
bridge?
Mhm.
All right, let's do it.
A great piece of trivia with the bridge scene is when they were setting that up to do all the explosions to film. Apparently, the guy who was detonating all the dynamite and stuff misheard someone say "via" and like "go." He misheard it, and he blew it up early before they had all of the cameras set. So
Oh no.
I saw conflicting stories. They either had to do another take, or you know how there's that one wide shot of the explosion that like looks kind of janky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
That's the
that
only
may
one
have
I
been
had.
the only
only
camera that
one.
was set up. That's the only footage that they have. I like to believe that more so than they had to set it up for another take, because that probably would have taken way too long. And this movie was shot on like an extremely small budget, but a hilarious bit of trivia about that movie. Like the biggest set piece in the whole movie is just fucked up by some guy on set mishearing his cue.
They were like, we got it in the can. Whatever.
Yeah, we got
Move on.
something.
We got all these extras. They gotta eat. Let's go home.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder if that's a reference in Tropic Thunder when Danny McBride does the same thing.
Maybe. Yeah.
It's a movie
I
about
forgot about
making
that.
movies, so yeah, they probably do.
Danny?
Hell yeah. And then it's just, I think it's after they blow up the bridge, but then there's just a random sequence of a bunch of cannons being fired and the camera like zooming in and out of them.
Hilarious.
It's hilarious. Like why?
I had to
why
turn
is
my
this-
volume down, yeah.
15 camera swaps.
So much.
And I was trying to think, like, do you think people in the 60s were like, oh my god, the horrors of war?
Yeah,
Do you
warriors.
think they were like, what the hell?
Oh my god! No, another cannon? No,
Yeah.
Grabbing the shoulder of the person next to you.
Sally, look, another cannon.
Oh,
Here
another
comes-
cannon.
It's gonna hit.
I'm so curious about like more of the response to this at the time, and how people reacted to it in the theater. Because watching it,
Yeah.
knowing that it is this illustrious part of the canon, colors your perspective to some degree. I do wonder,
Mhm.
because like you said, it was kind of panned in some ways by a lot of folks when it first came out, and then like later on, people kind of realized.
Yeah, it must have been. I mean, I think at the time, audiences were sort of like watching it and realizing, hey, this is something pretty cool. This is something special.
Yeah,
Where
they were confused. Yeah,
they must have been connecting to it on some sort of subconscious level because it's such an awesome movie and it is such a powerhouse of filmmaking. Of Quentin Tarantino, like we said, calls this the best directed movie of all time, and there's someone can certainly disagree with that, but this is a very, very, very well directed movie, and it might not necessarily be something that you're catching the first time around. So there might have been something on like a subconscious level where people are like, yeah, I don't like what it has to say about America, but that shootout scene at the end was pretty rad. and we don't have to get to it yet. I think there might still be a few other topics of conversation that I want to ask you guys about before we get to that. But I think one of the interesting things is apparently Clint Eastwood and Sergio Leone were kind of beefing when they made this movie.
Oh, interesting.
They didn't work together again after this, but allegedly the story goes before Fistful of Dollars, Clint Eastwood was a TV actor. He was looking to get into movies. No one was really hiring him in Hollywood, so he took whatever work he could get. Said work was a Western being made by some Italian guy in the outskirts of Spain. He took it. Everyone realized that he was super cool. Starts to become a movie star in the mid-'60s. By the time this one rolls around, he's like, I want a bigger paycheck. Leone's like, not so much. And also Eastwood read the script and he was like, Tuco is clearly the best character, and like Eli Wallach is getting all of the best lines. He's going to totally outshine me. I want to be the star of this. This is my vehicle. And Leone was like, take it or leave it, brother. And Eastwood took it. And I think it was still a good choice. It, Fistful of Dollars definitely launched his career, but this one like sent him into a new stratosphere where he like really could just like do whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And it's hard to know without the context because we have so many different like examples of that today. Like the biggest one being like, and it's funny because I think Paul Rudd made this analogy where he said like, old movie stars had Westerns, we have Marvel. Right. And it's like, you think about like the Hemsworths, like, well, Chris Hemsworth specifically, right? Like, and why am I blanking on the dude who plays Loki?
Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston. But they were like pure unknowns, like going into that, right? And it's like coming out, like they got like the box office percentage contract, so like they're rolling in it, and it's like that's I think like they obviously deserve that by the time they get to that point. So it's interesting to see that parallel even with Westerns versus Marvels in that sense too.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean they were so big. Like that was the like you'd go to the theater and get your popcorn, and that was like your turn off your brain time. Go see a Western, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and I think for so many of those actors too, it's like they got their bag, got their face on the papers, and then a lot of them were probably like, all right, I think I'm done with this, and wanted to go do like more artistic kind of things. It's interesting the parallels that there's always like the genre flick.
Yeah, I had no idea that they were beefing. I also didn't know Sergio did the entire trilogy.
Yeah,
Serge.
I haven't really watched too many other spaghetti westerns, but my understanding is that the reputation that they have as being like sort of bad, schlocky looks at American westerns is mostly true, with really the exception of this trilogy and another movie that Sergio Leone made. I feel like
all of them 3 hours long.
No, the first two are, I think, under 2 hours. The first one is essentially a ripoff of Yojimbo, which is an old Kurosawa samurai movie that is also in the canon. And we have an earlier episode. Our music
Yojimbo
creator, Tim
Yojimbo
Quinn, was on.
The one where they had like the accidental blood prop, like exploded.
I did not know that.
But you know what I'm talking about, where he cuts him and the blood's like tss. I think it's Yojimbo. It might be a different movie, but there was like I'm pretty sure it's Yojimbo where like they do like the classic samurai cut and like the blood goes crazy, but it was a prop accident, and that's like that ended up becoming like the foundation for like anime blood, like and like all like, so it was like a total accident, but that's like why anime has like the big blood like squirts and like
giant spray. That's cool.
Yeah.
Wait, that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's sweet. Should we talk about the shootout? I feel like we should talk about the shootout.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
The shootout is so awesome. It's amazing that this 3 hour movie comes to this. Is this the best shootout that you guys have ever seen?
I I haven't seen too many in the context that they're like originally in, but it's such a I don't even want to say trope, you know, it's just like you know the shootout, like everybody knows the shootout, the classic thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so tense, and I loved that. You've got this music blaring, the camera's whipping back and forth between their hands and their faces. It's just like, oh my god, will someone please freaking pull their gun out? It's like you don't know what's going to happen. Like, oh, the tension was beautiful, and then what a funny end to it.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Yeah.
Like
I was
Tuco's
predicting-
gun not firing was
Classic.
the funniest thing that could have happened.
Absolute peak
Just
comedy,
no bullets.
peak. People fell out of the seats during that for sure.
All of that tension for nothing.
Yeah, like you
And
expect,
he's,
you know,
he's looking at it.
like going to be like, you know, guns going off. They're going to be jumping and rolling around, and then it's literally his gun doesn't fire, and he just
Yeah, the
takes
guy-
out Angel Eyes, and that's it. And then he just looks over at Tuco, and he's just like, "Yeah, let's do this thing."
Let's get this gold. Let's
Yeah,
get this
let's
bread.
get this-
It was
let's get this
also
gold.
amazing for Angel Eyes to just like literally roll into a grave.
Yeah,
All right.
So funny.
That's it.
yeah, strong
That's-
symbolism.
Yeah.
It
I
was
think
funny,
it's
like, yeah,
3 minutes, the cutting with the song and the editing between their faces and their guns. I think it's 3 full minutes of movie time just for that. Boom. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's to see that now. It's so funny because I'm so stuck on the notion of trying to think of how people reacted in the moment versus us with, you know, like 50, 60, God, maybe even more years of, you know, looking back on it. Because to me, that was so over the top and so dramatic. And I loved it, but it was like, it was funny. It was just like, oh my God, like this, the back and forth, the tension, this and that. But I'm like, I wonder, was the intention to be like, you know, like repetition in comedy where it's like done so many times that it gets funny? Like, was that the goal, or was this truly an earnest attempt to build this tension? You're not supposed to be laughing. I actually really wonder, because like I was, you know, it's like nervous laughter almost. You're just like, oh my God, like what is going to happen? Like they just keep cutting back and forth. I'm not sure. I wonder, like, were audiences, you know, like chuckling at the absurdity of it, or were they, you know, on the edge of their seats, like waiting to see what was going to happen?
But for me, it was like going back to the Sad Hill like set piece. It was just so symmetrical, and like the angle of the shots that they were getting to like really show you how like all 3 dudes were like in a triangle in a circle. Like they all, the good, bad, and the ugly, they all ended up in the same circle. Like it doesn't matter like who they were; they all ended up in the same place. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a flat circle.
It was so cool. Like all the graves pointing at them pointing
Yeah.
at each other in the perfect triangle, all in the same circle. It was just so cool. It was like the symmetry of the shot was of the scene was incredible.
It also, speaking of symmetry, it starts with a wide shot of the 3 of them, and then it does all that kooky editing, cutting between their eyes, their hands, their fingers, and like, oh man, why am I blanking on the name of the actor who plays Angel Eyes?
Lee Van Cleef.
Lee Van Cleef, amazing name. He has like a stub finger, which is just an amazing little detail that's perfect for his character. But between all, you know, you have all that cutting, and then when Blondie shoots Angel Eyes, it cuts back to a wide shot, and it's again banana. It's that symmetry, you know, the showdown, the Mexican standoff, if you will, starts with that wide shot, does all this crazy stuff in between, and then it ends up back in that wide shot. Yeah.
It's dude, comedy lives in the wide shot. So maybe it is.
Yeah. Comedy lives in the wide shot.
Man,
Is that a real theory of comedy?
I'm trying to think of where I heard that.
I've never heard that before.
It comes in 3s and it comes in the wide shots.
I feel like that's a Tracy Morgan line from 30 Rock.
That does sound very 30 Rocky.
Where he just like says like a random like theater like or a random like cinema
Yeah.
principle. He goes from being like dumb idiot to just comedy lives in the wide shot.
Dude, I listened to the score for this movie today while I was working, and the last 2 songs are The Ecstasy of Gold and The Trio, which is the song that's playing during the shootout or during the moments leading up to the shootout. And I felt like I was going to run through a wall, and I had to run back both of those songs again. And I was literally just sitting at my desk, and I should have been working. I should have been like typing and stuff, and I couldn't help but just like pump my fists in the air along to the music. There were also moments where I was listening to it where I was galloping in my chair like I was riding a horse. Like, it's one of the best scores ever written for a movie. It's in a lot of past episodes we've talked about most iconic movie scores, and we talk about Jaws, we talked about Rocky, and the fact that in all those conversations we failed to mention the music from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is kind of criminal, because I think the Ecstasy of Gold is the single best piece of music ever written for a movie. And I'm going to say that right now.
9 to 5 would like to have a chat. No, Ecstasy of Gold is a beautiful song. It is very funny, like we said, that it's just used on a madman digging through graves. But it's a beautiful, beautiful song, and it's like it has like the same effect that oh my god, what's the song called that the Michael Jordan song has? You know what I'm talking about? The Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan intro song.
Oh, not one of the songs from Space Jam. Their intro music. Project. Is it Sirius Black by the like Adam something project?
Yeah, you know what I'm
Adam Larson's or something like that. There's someone listening who's like yelling
Alan
out there.
Alan Parsons. The Alan Parsons.
Alan Larson's.
The Alan Parsons project. But yeah, that song, it's like it has that same effect of just like perfect human harmonies that are just infiltrating your ear, and you're transported to like the most epic moment in time possible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's amazing when music perfectly captures not just the tension of the moment in a film, but just the genre as a whole. Yeah, and I think that Enrico Morricone did that so successfully with this, where like, even if you didn't know what this was from, I feel like if you played that song to someone, they would, and you asked them like how it made them feel or what you think it should be set to, they would probably say like, I don't know, like
horses through a desert,
horses, cowboys, like something like that.
A shootout, something. A
shootout. So perfectly, like really a master at his craft.
The absolute master, an absolute king. Just no words will do it justice. I think what he did was he made movie magic.
Whoa.
That's nice. Oh, wow. Are you sitting on that one the whole time? Your finger on the button?
It just came to me. So dumb.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, almost as beautiful as the Ecstasy of Gold.
It really is. I think movie magic is a great way to describe just kind of how this movie made me feel as a whole. Just watching it, like you really feel like, just I don't know, just so masterfully done. Like I was really engaged and really so in it the whole time. Just felt like you were seeing a lot of people really in the pocket, of what they were doing. Like really in the pocket. Like everybody on that set, for better or worse, like even the people who were just like kind of weird and wacky and looked odd and doing strange things, everybody was so meant to be there. It's really incredible. I think that's why it stood the test of time so well.
Hell yeah. I don't know if you guys felt this way, but when I was rewatching it, I sort of got this feeling of, for the first 2.5 hours, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is a really good movie. This movie's really good. And then everything at Sad Hill happens, and it immediately jumps up into, this is one of the best movies ever made. Like everything before, you're like, this is super technically sound. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on. I'm really digging the vibe that this movie's putting down. And then you get to Sad Hill, and you get to that shootout, and then you get to that ending. And for me, that was just like, this is one of the most incredible things that a human being, or that humans have ever, put on film for others to enjoy. I don't know if you guys got that same vibe, or if you were sort of bought in like that, all throughout.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like I think it's like the cherry on top. That scene is like the cherry on top, where it you're kind of waiting for the ultimate conflict of the three to come to fruition. The whole movie builds up so much tension in different ways, like the waiting of them three to finally all come together to see like that final standoff. The standoff itself has tension, but then even like in the final moments of Tuco, like not hanging, but you're like keeps almost falling off of the grave, where he's like about
Yeah.
he just like he's screaming for Blondie to come back, but every time he does, it like makes him almost trip, and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna fall! Like you're waiting and waiting for him to like trip,
Yeah.
and then Clint Eastwood, you see him like pop back into the frame, and Tuco knows like, oh my god, thank
The
God,
relief,
like,
yeah. He's like, oh,
and then he's kind of worried, like, oh my god, wait, what if he misses? Like you see it in Tuco's face, he's like, his face like drops, he's like, oh no, he's very far. But it's just they're so good at building like macro and micro tension between like almost like all these individual shots. It's so cool. It's so neat, and Sad Hill is full of that. Like every moment, like, is he gonna find the gold? Is he not gonna find the gold? Like, you know, like the standoff, the 3 minutes of camera switching, like every you know, him opening the grave and like there being nothing in there. It was great. It's like it's just knife cutting the tension repeatedly over and over, all the way from that point on till the very end, where he rides off literally into the sunset.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, it wrapped up things so well. Like it's one of those very nice feelings when you watch something and you feel like it gave you everything that you felt you wanted as it went along. Like, you know, it really wrapped up everything pretty tightly, left you with your own kind of interpretation of where the characters are going to go, what they're going to do next. Like, yeah, it was just, I turned the movie off. I was just like, nice. It's like nodded to myself. I was like, nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Awesome.
Movies are rad. Movies can be very sick. Thank you,
also,
Sergio.
A full 3 hours. Like I was like, oh, this will probably have like 20 minutes of credits. Nope.
Oh yeah.
Full
3 hours.
Right on there.
Yeah.
Full 3.
The opening credits are awesome though.
Yeah, they're amazing.
That like animation style with the music going, you know, you're ready to ride on your horse and get to it. But
have you ever ridden a horse?
No, maybe once in like 8th grade. I don't like horses. They kind of terrify me.
They're terrifying.
Yeah, they're
very powerful.
Yeah, very powerful.
Very powerful creatures.
I have an uncle who has like a full blown stallion. And when you see them, like you're like, oh my god, like you are prehistoric. You are
yeah. It's like I am. You are in charge here. That's kind of how it feels.
Well, yeah. What kind of psycho was like, I should ride this thing? Should test it out. Someone saw that and was just like,
yeah, I'll go for a ride.
I got an idea. What if we jump on back at this bad boy?
Pablo, get the rope. Get the rope, Pablo.
For what? Damn, Sean and Sean. That was the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think we covered all of it. I don't know if you guys have anything else. It's been a very fun, very full conversation. One of the best movies ever made. That's why it's in the canon.
One thing I wanted to mention, which I thought was super interesting. Well, two things. One thing quickly I noticed was one of my favorite shots in the movie, which I couldn't like pinpoint where I feel like things stemmed off of, but there's a very quick shot where like someone's holding a gun to the camera and the camera's like looking directly down the barrel of the gun, and you can like literally see the bullet, but then also you can see the person behind holding the gun. Unless I've dreamed this, but I'm pretty sure that was in there. But I thought that shot was like super cool, and it felt like really advanced for the 60s. I don't know why. It just felt like super out of place, but in like a cool, like innovative way. And then on top of that, like, you know, with the bridge set piece and Sad Hill and everything, I wanted to know how much the movie cost to make, and it only cost like, I think it was like 1.8 million to make the movie, which was like so wild. Yeah, 1.2 million, and it made almost 40 million back, which is like nuts, right? It just made me like realize how inflated the budgets have become. I know it's been like 60 years almost in between, but I don't think movies have gone from 1 to 400 million in 60
This
years.
was a cheap movie to make. This was they were definitely on a tight budget. But I think a lot of times what we learn when looking back at some of the great movies is that budgetary constrictions oftentimes lead to great creative ingenuity, and like a lot of times the best movies are ones where they had to figure things out because they couldn't just buy the right option,
You couldn't just green screen it.
I agree completely. Yeah. Like one of the reasons I love watching old films like this is that groundedness where, CGI just literally wasn't an option. You couldn't do that kind of thing. And just the sets feel so believable. It feels so lived in, like everybody's just, you feel that sense of presence, of weight and groundedness to it that I think is just powerful.
And I think that's something that is missing from a lot of modern media in general. Like, I do think some of it has to straight up do with the cameras having gotten too nice.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
Like if you look at
everyone should shoot on 35.
Any Law and Order past like 2007 versus like 1990, anything before that, like it just has that grit to it where it's like it just looks
the New York grit
more immersive as opposed to like a soap opera. And I even get the same thing from like you said, like lived in, authentic. I feel like that was something that was missing from even like The Last of Us on HBO, right? I was like, this feels like a sound stage of a refugee camp, not a refugee camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
But when you see something like this, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just in the Midwestern America in the 1800s.
Yeah, yeah. I think everything should be shot on old film. Get rid of the digital stuff. It stinks.
It's gross. No, it actually is. It's like too clean.
It is. I
too
can't
clean.
stand it.
Too gross.
I almost wish
there
we
are
didn't
some
have,
good
like,
examples
4K
of good digital photography.
Oh, really? Name 40.
Are any in the Canon? I didn't
Damn,
think so.
my bad. Yeah, there probably are a few that are in the Canon.
I just did a quick inflation calculator. $1 million in 1965 was that?
Was like, I'm gonna guess like 10 million or 12 million.
Yeah, you're right on the dot. 1 million was about 9.8 million.
Let's go.
What's the last movie you remember that cost $10 million?
$10 million to make. Like maybe some horror movie. Those usually have low budgets, but I'm trying to think. Like
maybe Get Out.
Yeah, let me see. Get Out.
Or like a super low, even like the lowest budget A24 movie probably costs like 20.
Yeah, actually, Get Out was only 4.5 million. Nice work, Jordan.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's a comedy. Comedies are cheaper to make.
Yeah.
Is it? It's actually a documentary, according to Jordan Peele. We're getting so off topic.
And then Nope's budget was 68 million. There you go.
Well, there's a lot going on. There were aliens and stuff.
The one that I thought I tried to just number check was Cloverfield because I thought maybe that one would be relatively cheap. Even that was 25.
Really? Wow, that's surprising.
But yeah,
I'm trying to think. Yeah. Another great shot that I randomly thought of before we wrap up is towards the end. Well, first of all, going back to what I was saying before, where the movie really kicks into overdrive for me is from the moment he gets the poncho on, especially because I had seen Fistful of Dollars and for a few dollars more before, so I knew about the
game.
Yeah, that's Captain America getting the hammer.
Thor's.
Yeah. Man with Blondie will return.
Blondie will return in a Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, but when he gets the poncho and you're like, holy crap, he hasn't had the poncho the whole movie, which means that this movie takes place before that first movie, which is rad. And then when he puts on the poncho for the rest of the movie, he looks incredible. Like,
Yeah.
you think he looks cool before he has the poncho? When he then has the poncho and he flips it over his shoulder,
Oh,
that is
God.
maybe the coolest that anyone has ever looked on
I
screen.
was contemplating damn, should I do a cape scenario? Like, is my repertoire of
Can I pull
outfits?
that off?
What? Yeah,
Something that
can I
hangs over
rock
shoulders?
like a denim shirt with a vest and a poncho vibe? Like, is that my look? I don't
Dude,
necessarily
let's
want
do
a gun
Good, Bad, and
holster,
Ugly
but
for
some sort.
Halloween.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Nice. The other great shot that I was thinking of is when is after Tuco gets the cash and he stands up and the camera moves up and his head is just in the frame of the noose and he's like, this freaking guy.
Oh yeah.
This
You're talking about
guy.
Oh yeah, when he looks up.
Yeah,
And,
he looks up and
it's cool because the way they frame it is it's his face and then it kind of zooms out, but you still don't see the noose.
yeah.
It just pulls you to his point of view before it switches it back around to the noose. Or it was super cool. It was super well done. Where you just see the sadness and betrayal in his eyes.
Yeah. He goes from so happy to just, oh man.
Yeah,
not again.
He's like, Blondie, we're rich, Blondie. And he's like, oh shucks. He literally does the Franco first time.
Well, should you have any final notes or tidbits to mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this movie that I think you see in a lot of these classic films is just there were so many good on-camera deaths. Like, these actors just hamming it up, really owning that moment, taking their time on screen, which I feel like people are just too good at it now. You know what I mean? Back then they were just like they read in a book how someone died in a Wild West thing. Like the guy, Carson in the horse wagon, he's just like
the dude in the bathhouse. The dude,
give me some water. Yeah, and the guy in the bathhouse who just flips around when he gets shot, and then he gets up and gets shot again and goes flying. It's
flying over a table.
It's gorgeous.
There's nothing
that
like
happen.
Someone getting shot in a Western and them going over a table.
Yeah, it's just,
or the guy who does the dramatic fall from the top of a roof in a
I had that thought too.
Yeah.
Oh, gorgeous stuff. It's just really beautiful to see actors just
keeling
really,
over and then doing the slowest flip down.
Just falling forward. Just thinking about on set that day, it's the 60s and somewhere in Spain they probably didn't have nice mattresses under him. He probably just fell into a bunch of hay. They had $10 million. They couldn't afford that. It's great. Just that kind of just grittiness to the actors' performances. I just kind of love all that kind of thing. Just everybody. It felt like everybody's just really just, I don't know, living it up, really enjoying those moments, which I think carries across. I love a good on camera, just dramatic death sequence like that. Just lots of, groaning and gunshots and all that kind of thing. Fun stuff. I could have phrased it better, but
it goes back to what you were saying about, actors being for a lot of people, it's just a working job. It's a working class job. And there are people who have made a living off of knowing how to die in Western movies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those people, they made their entire livelihoods off of knowing how to fall off of a roof after getting shot by the protagonist. Yeah.
I mean, it's the incredible thing that you see with so many actors, especially back then, they made a lot of Western movies, man. We think of maybe 1 out of every 20 that actually got produced. And you can go back and look at one, and then you click on some random dude's Wikipedia page, and it's some guy you've never heard of who died in 1982, who's got literally 50 films on his resume, and they're all Westerns. And it's that guy literally made a living doing that.
Bandit number 4.
Yeah, it's remarkable that it employed so many actors, and people really. It was a whole chapter of American cinematic history.
So good, such a good movie. I know this has been kind of a long episode, but it's been worthwhile. This has been a great conversation about a great film with great friends. I appreciate you guys joining. I appreciate you guys taking so much time out of your busy content creating art producing lives to sit with me and talk about this movie, and for spending 3 hours to watch the damn thing. That's not, it's not an easy thing. So I thank you guys again. I don't know. We didn't talk about it before, but do you guys have recommendations
related to this?
Yeah.
I rewatched True Blood recently. That's the only other like Western I can think of. The remake.
Is that the vampire one?
No. It's the True Grit. True Grit. True Blood is the vampire one. Yeah, I rewatched all of True Blood. Everybody go check it out. No, I rewatched True Grit recently, which is just fantastic, dude. That movie is just awesome.
I haven't seen it since it was out in theaters.
Oh, it's great. I think it's Coen Brothers too, right?
I think so.
Like it's just so good. It's so good. Haley Steinfeld, shockingly awesome child actress.
I didn't realize she was in that.
She's a little girl, but she kills it. You'd think she's like 20 years old with how good she acts in that movie. It's insane.
Damn.
Yeah, that's worth a rewatch for sure.
Yeah, we don't. This will be our first episode without a full recommendation section because I realized that I didn't remind you guys to do it, and also the first time that you guys were on, I didn't tell you the rules properly, so I think we sort of messed it up. I don't know if you guys have listened, but our Raiders of the Lost Ark episode features our good friends Sean, Three Cats in a Trench Coat, and Mike Rocco. And I told them about recommendations, but I didn't tell them that it was supposed to be related to the movie that we were talking about. So they just came with like the most like the most random recommendations ever. And then they ended up
Blade Runner 2049.
Some mental gymnastics to like tie them to the actual movie. Yeah, Welsh, I don't know if you have anything that
I didn't coming into this because I completely spaced on that as well. But it's funny now thinking back on it, mentioning earlier, like the first season of Westworld is actually kind of funny to watch.
Yeah,
maybe again in the context of having seen like a classic Western, and how that I say the first season because I didn't finish the second one, and then the show got weird. But like that first season is such a great like meta analysis of people's idea of the Wild West and how people watched movies like this and kind of imagine themselves in that scenario where like, would you be the good? Would you be the bad? Would you be the ugly?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a neat little meta analysis. So, if you're like in the mood for Westerns and you want to see a modern meta, wacky, Jonathan Nolan.
We dropped this as a game recommendation last time, but it fits even better this time is Red Dead Redemption 2, which is this movie, a prequel, so you can play it before the first one. And it's like it's made by people who make GTA, but it's in pure Wild West, like amazing story. It's a bit long, but you will cry. You will cry multiple times throughout this movie, or it feels like a movie throughout the game. And I know a lot of people who like don't play games who like only played Red Dead 2. So like you're like, I don't play games, blah, like give it a shot. Like you might be able to get through it. It's super good. It's super, super good.
I've wanted to pick up the first Red Dead for a while. I don't know if it's the same characters at all, but the main character of Red Dead 1 is like very much so inspired by Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name character in these movies. As is
John Morgenstern.
Sure. Welsh, I don't know. Are you also a Stephen King guy?
Yeah, I'm a Stephen King guy.
Apparently the main character in The Dark Tower, is that the series?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have not read that one, but
apparently that character is based off of or inspired by The Man with No Name as well. So again, just like
makes sense.
Inspiration from this
movie
everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
The competent gunslinger.
We love confidence here. It's our thing. Except for when it's coming from us. Like I myself will never be competent, but I like watching other people.
Oh, I refuse to be competent.
It's not my contract.
You don't want to set the standard.
They actually are kind of re-releasing Red Dead Redemption 1 soon to the Switch even. as well.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think I haven't played one. Welsh, I know you have, but
Mm-hmm.
I
love
think
it.
2 is like a God-given.
You think it's better?
masterpiece. Yeah,
You haven't
Nice.
played the first.
I've seen a lot of it. What do you
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's tough to say. I liked a lot of things about the first game better, but I think the second is such a beautiful story, and it's more cinematic for sure. But I think they have pros and cons.
Nah, pick one now.
We'll recommend both. So we've got True Grit, not True Blood, not the vampire show. We've got the True Grit remake by the Coen brothers with the dude is in that, right?
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff
the dude.
Bridges.
Dude is in it.
Yeah. Not Jeff Goldblum. That would be a weird Western. And
And Haley Steinfeld only for
Haley Steinfeld.
and
then
what's
we've
his name?
also got
Matt Damon.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
LaBeouf.
Matt Damon is in that.
LaBeouf, and he bites his tongue. He almost bites his tongue off.
Oh wow. Now I'm interested.
Oh, dude!
And then we've
True
also
Grit.
got season 1 of Westworld as a recommendation, and we've got Red Dead Redemption 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2. So I feel like that's a solid no prep
A lot of Western.
recommendation list.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do mine really quickly because I did have some, even though I forgot to tell you guys, which is starting to become a very bad trend in this show, but that's okay. So my first one, and this is also a recommendation for the two of you guys. If you guys liked The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Sergio Leone has another great spaghetti western epic that is about 3 hours long called Once Upon a Time in the West. It is, in my opinion, I think a little bit better. It's, I think, a bit more serious, a bit more dramatic, more emotional. There's a lot more tension that's built in it. Just a bit more of like a mature. It's not as like fun as this one, but it's super, super, super good. A great revenge flick. Has one of the best opening sequences ever made. Super,
Cardinale,
just
the main actress is beautiful.
in Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah,
Henry Fonda.
Claudia Cardinale.
Yeah, the main actress in that movie is a stunning looking person, which definitely helps in enjoying the movie. So that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is actually something that I think we talked about a little bit, but Breaking Bad, just like similar anti-hero. Do you say anti-hero or are you supposed to say anti-hero? Or does it not matter?
I guess I would always say anti-hero because it feels like you're emphasizing the first part.
I think. How do you pronounce the Rihanna album?
I don't know.
Anti or anti? I feel like that's
The same way I pronounce. Similar vibe, anti-hero.
Whichever way you go with that for anti.
Okay. But yeah, just like big Western landscapes, a guy who we kind of root for, but is also sort of a jackass in Walter White, and just a great show. I don't know why, but I was getting a lot of Breaking Bad vibes from this movie.
Sure.
And then I think the last one I'm going to go with is I'll go with another Western that is sort of like the anti version of this, but similar to what we were talking about like having just like ugly, like unique looking people in a Western movie, the way that this one does. I'm going to recommend The Harder They Fall, that Netflix Western movie that came out last year with Lakeith Stanfield and Idris Elba and Regina King, and everyone in that movie is beautiful and gorgeous and the opposite of how you should cast a Western, even though they're all like super cool, but like throw in a few more ugly faces in there to go along with those folks. So that'll be my recommendation that sort of goes against the grain of like something that was being done in The Good, the Bad,
that
and
movie's
the
a
Ugly.
banger. It looks great.
It's a lot of fun. It's very inspired by Tarantino, and Tarantino is obviously very inspired by Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So it is in a way derivative of this. This is one of those movies where once you watch it, you realize
you see it everywhere.
how many things
you really do.
are derived from this, and that's why it's in the canon. That's why it's one of the most essential movies. If you have watched, movies in the last 20 to 30 years that you really enjoy, there's a good chance that you've come across some things that you like that are pulling from the good, the bad, and the ugly. You've probably heard the name. You've definitely heard the music. So it's worth checking out. Also worth checking out is the S Rank podcast with Sean Banana Ryan and Sean Welsh Brown. You can find them on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can listen to them wherever you get your podcasts. S Rank podcast, really good show. If you're into video games, video game news, check these dudes out. Gentlemen, thank you again for joining me. Thanks for chatting.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We got to have you on for sure. Oh, and YouTube. YouTube's we do our podcast in video format, so you can kind of like watch our little, like what article we're looking at or whatever we're talking about while we do it. So YouTube or any audio platform, S Rank podcast. But yeah, we got to have you on. We got to figure out a way to squeeze you in. Maybe we have you play like one of the Willem Dafoe like short games or something. gotta find like a middle ground.
Play all of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, play all of it. Just do like a 70-hour game real quick, and then we can have you on.
Bet. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys.
This was a blast.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Can we get an Ecstasy of Gold outro?
Oh, we don't really have the rights to that, but what we can do is, I think we all did such a good job that we probably deserve a round of applause.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We did it. Boom. Listener, thank you for sticking with us. If you're still listening, again, check out Sean and Sean on the S Rank podcast. And until next time, we'll see you on the Canon. We're in the Canon.
The Canon.